Right. Good morning, everybody. So, as we're now into March, I've got a few fun facts this month. A mix between a Chihuahua and a Dachshund is called a Chiweenie. There are no seagulls in Hawaii. I wish I lived there. Even though dragonflies have 6 legs, they cannot walk. When humans breathe, we replace only 15% of the oxygen in our lungs. However, when a dolphin breathes, they replace 90%. Sea otters have the thickest fur of any mammal at 1 million hairs per square inch. I love this one. Feral pigs ate and completely destroyed $22,000 worth of cocaine that had been hidden in an Italian forest. Monarch caterpillars breathe through holes in the sides of their bodies. Male lobsters' bladders are in their heads, and when they fight, they squirt each other in the face with urine. Riding or sitting on a sea turtle in the United States is a 3rd-degree felony. And finally, a starfish has no blood or brain and doesn't have the same kind of central nervous system as us, but it can regrow its own arms. Now, I think starfishes mean that there are aliens amongst us, and starfishes are one. Anyway, moving swiftly on. This morning, I'd like to welcome Alex Chaban, Customer Success Executive from Capium, who is one of the IAB award sponsors. This morning, he's going to discuss what Capium does, give us a whistle-stop tour of Capium's integrated cloud-based accounting software system and how it can support the IAB members. And hopefully everybody should gain an understanding of how you can improve efficiency in the way you work and make your practice more profitable through acquiring the proper cloud software. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Caroline. Thank you for that introduction. Shall I share my screen? So
yes,
let me just see.
Please.
I think it's disabled for me. I'm not sure. Let me try. Oh, there we go. I think it should be showing. Apologies, guys. Don't use Zoom as much as I should be, but can you see my screen right now?
Difficulties? Yes, we can see your screen.
Great. Okay. So what you see on screen, guys, this is the Capium ecosystem, right? So in terms of today's session, just to make it quite succinct, and as we don't have much time to go over all the elements within Capium, we'll be covering the full suite products, right? And the full suite, this is where we have bookkeeping, we've got payroll, accounts production, corporation tax self-assessment, and practice management. So this is all part of our integrated full suite package. Aside from just those modules, we do also provide charity accounts. So if you deal with any charity clients, you can now do that through our charities module. We also have company secretarial, which is done via another software company which specializes in company secretarial, which is called the CoSec House. So if you are interested, we do host free sessions with that team as well. So you can see and have that added onto the full suite if that is of interest. And we have time and fees. So time and fees is also a new module within our ecosystem, which allows you to track all the time that is being spent on specific tasks or jobs within your practice. So staff user rates, and you can track all the profitability basically within the practice and then have those attached to invoices and so forth. So again, a really useful module if you're looking, to track the time and the profitability within your practice. So just to kind of, as mentioned, so we're covering the full suite in today's session. So we'll start off with bookkeeping, and then we'll finish off with practice management towards the end of this. So again, as there's a lot of content within each module, we will be covering the main aspects or the USPs within each module, right? And if you do have any questions, guys, you can let us know in the chat. I'm not sure if that's something we do, but it'll be great if you have any interaction on that. So we can always help you out as well, because we do provide free demonstrations and trials of the software as well. So as you can see here, guys, this is just the general dashboard.
Can I just interrupt, Alex? We asked people to put them in the chat, and then at the end, I'll come to you with the questions from the chat, if that's all right, rather than interrupt you. Of course.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Caroline. And just to confirm, Caroline, how long do we have in terms of the tour? About 20 minutes, would that be okay? Or
yeah, 20 minutes would be brilliant.
Great, thank you. So of course, this is where we've got the dashboard, right? And the very first thing you do in Capium, and that applies to any software, I guess, is you need to import the clients into the software. And the way to do that is if you click on the C button at the top, we have our module drop down over here. So you've got all the modules and you've got My Admin. So when you use Capium for the first time, you can import all of your clients via a 3-step CSV process. So if you have limited companies, sole traders, partnerships, you can do it on that CSV and get it imported straight away. And another disclaimer, guys, is we do offer free onboarding and training support. So if you start your subscription with Capium, we can then provide those sessions to assist you with the module setup as well as client imports and so forth. So once, of course, the clients are all set up here, this is where they'll be linked. So I can click onto any of the clients that I would like to look at in further detail. And this UI and I guess process or user interface that we have within the system is going to be very similar throughout. So if you're in bookkeeping, payroll, or accounts, it will look very similar. So as you can see, this is where we've got our dashboard, which gives us all the details pertaining to that specific client. And on the left side, this is where we have all the bookkeeping areas. So just as there's quite a few features here, I will be going over the specific ones. So if there's any questions, guys, please let me know. But as you can see, we've got the sales, so you can invoice, do your sales invoices either on an individual basis or on a bulk upload basis via CSV. We've got quotations, recurring invoices, as well as the receipts and items. As well as that, we have the purchases, and the purchases, again, will be very similar because you can do it either on an individual basis or in a bulk import system, okay? Another thing we have with purchases is the Capium scan. This will enable you to scan your physical expense receipts through, so if you've got the mobile phone application, you can then have that scanned. It uses OCR technology to pick that up, and then it will feed that automatically into your purchases within here. Aside from that, we also have quick entry, which again just fast tracks your payments and receipts, so you can just do it directly here. Another thing, I guess, one of the greatest USPs of Capium in general is not only do we provide all the modules in one space, but they are integrated, right? So if you have any capital allowances within the fixed assets register here, as you can see on the right, we have the you can add in the assets, you can do depreciation automatically, either on like a straight line, reducing balance, and we've got rollback, of course. So if you have any capital allowances here, they can automatically go into corporation tax. Another link we have is in the tasks. So we have the journals, so you can integrate your journals to Payroll. So if you run Payroll in Capium, there is an option to synchronize those journals back into bookkeeping. Again, just helping that having that integrated data within the system. Aside from that, we've got budgets, which we can set up, dividend vouchers for shareholders, and bulk edit, which will allow you to recode any of your transactions in bulk. Aside from that, we have the bank, so you can obviously set up your client's bank account. You can then import those bank transactions into Capium, either via CSV or manual, or we have the bank feed option, which can automate those transactions into Capium. The only thing to note, guys, because Bank Feeds is connected via TrueLayer, which is a third-party software vendor that we're integrated with, it is an additional cost to use the bank feed, which is £1.50 excluding VAT per bank feed per month. However, we are actually very soon upgrading our bookkeeping, so it will be part of the cost moving forward. But at the moment, it is technically additional. So you can use the bank feed, or you can just do it via CSV or manual. So both options will be available to you. Aside from that, you can pull in your customers, suppliers, directors, and shareholders. So again, customers and suppliers will be linked with your sales and your purchases above. We've got the schedule just for ad hoc features, and we've got VAT and MTD, especially in our current climate. MTD is very important with everything that HMRC and just the current, I guess, everything's going more digital nowadays. So with MTD, you can either do that internally through Capium or externally. So internal is all done via Submit VAT. So if you've done all the sales and purchases, for example, in the bookkeeping, that will then automatically go into Submit VAT. If you're using other softwares like QuickBooks or Xero, or maybe doing it on Excel, you can do it via bridging. So that will just be done by CSV instead. Aside from that, that is pretty much all the bookkeeping elements. There's also reports and CIS. I am just a little bit conscious of time because there's a lot of features in bookkeeping, guys. So if you do have questions, please let us know in the chat, and we'll just progress on to the next module for payroll. So with
just
payroll,
before you do, Alex, I've got
it's going to be quite
question.
standard.
When's the new bookkeeping coming out?
Yeah, of course. Oh, that's a good one. So we're looking, the reason why we're upgrading the modules in general, guys, is with charities and time and fees, they are new modules within our ecosystem. And because those are done on like a newer architecture, new UI system, they're done on the 5.0 version. So that's what we're looking to do for all the other systems like bookkeeping, not just bookkeeping, payroll, accounts production, corporation tax, and self-assessment. So with that in mind, we're looking to get that all upgraded by the end of 2024.
Right.
So that's for all modules. So not
Excellent.
specifically bookkeeping, but it's difficult to say because I feel like at the moment we're juggling too many balls.
Yeah.
But we're looking to get that. That's the timeline. We're looking to get done by the end of 2024, basically. So,
Can you produce
but
pro
yeah.
forma
So,
sales invoices as well?
can I produce a sales invoice? Sorry, or
A pro forma sales invoice. Jane's asked in the chat, can you produce a pro forma sales invoice? Presumably from the bookkeeping
pro
stuff.
forma.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll need to double check that with the support team. I'm not too sure about the pro forma, but with invoices, so if I just go into just a regular sales invoice, just to quickly show you here, this is just going to be like a regular invoice if you're doing it individually, right? So you've got all the options here: invoice type, credit note, inventory, customer name you can select, and if you want to do CIS domestic reverse charges or anything like that, that can be done here. But in terms of the pro forma, I will note that down, guys, and I will come back. So if there's any questions, I will link in the chat after this. I'll link my email address, guys, so you can email me directly with any questions to the software.
Right.
But yeah, so pro forma, sorry, I'll need to double check. So sorry about that, but
No,
I
no
will come
problem.
back. But yeah, anything else, Caroline? Or
No, not the minute.
good?
We'll
Great.
move
So yeah, so
swiftly to payroll.
great. So payroll, again, dashboard wise, very similar. Well, there will be similarities, but of course it is going to be specifically on payroll. As we clicked onto London PCO, it's going to give us the dashboard and we've got the sections on the left. So the first section we have is manage payroll. This is where you can import all of your employees into Capium. So you can either do that individually or on a bulk import basis. We also have the year-to-date supported. So you can obviously, if you're trying to do the payroll during the year instead of April, from the new financial year, you can do that here as well. And then once those figures are done, you can then do your additional, such as SMPs, SSPs. You've got your attachment of earnings, mileage, expense claims, additions and deductions. So any of those aspects you can add into the system as well. Leave and holidays will be here. And you've got the timekeeping, of course. So you can add in the time records and import that in bulk as well. And the last step will then, once you've done all those processes, you can then process the payroll by firstly approving the gross pay, as you can see here. So we can just go through on the system here, select exactly which one we would like to approve. Before you approve, you can make changes to the gross pay and do your net to gross calculation on the right. But once that's done, you can then approve it. You can also do your pension assessment, which is going to be aligned with the auto enrollment section, which we'll get into shortly. And then once that's done, you can then run the payroll and submit your FPS directly to HMRC through the software. And
Quick
of course,
question,
payslip.
Alex.
Yep, of course.
Quick question, just going back. Is there a way that the client can approve that? Is there a way that they can
The
log
payroll,
on
right? Sure, yes,
and
that's actually a good point you mentioned, Caroline, because with the software, we have unlimited user licenses, right? So we'll
right,
get on to like the staff and the accountants in a moment as well. But with the clients, when you give them access to the software, they can have free access to bookkeeping and payroll. So with payroll, they won't be able to run payroll, so don't worry about that. But they
they
can
can
do their
approve it?
own additions, they can approve it, they can do their own timekeeping, for example, and then they can also have access to the pay slips after submission. And also they can have access to their own Capium Hub portal, and that's where they can do their own document e-signing, document sharing, and store their own documents on their portal. This is all free access, by the way, guys. The same also applies to staff and accountants. So if you've got other staff and accountants within your practice, there's no extra cost for that. And then you can assign them the relevant modules in terms of what they can access. The same goes with the clients in terms of your client portfolio, so you can delegate that accordingly as well. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Caroline.
Yeah, no, that's
But yeah,
brilliant.
so
Thank you.
Great. So aside from that auto enrollment, this is all to do with the pensions, which you can set up. So we do have direct integrations with Nest, Smart Pension, and if there's any other pension schemes you would like to set up, you can go through this drop-down list. I'm not sure if you can see that, guys, because on Google Meet, we normally present, it doesn't show the drop-down, unfortunately, but on
No,
Zoom,
you can
hopefully
see it.
this does. Okay,
Yeah,
great. So
yeah, you can see it.
yeah, so you can see these are all the options that you can set up. And then once you've done that, you can fill out all the details, click next, and then finally set that up. You can do all your enrollments, contributions here, as well as assigning the relevant employees to that pension scheme process. We also got the pension assessment, which we can run and generate the letters out here, as well as track the overall progress of that pension scheme that we're running within the system. Aside from that, submissions-wise, so all the RTIs, FPS, EPS, year-end amendment FPSs, and early updates will be supported. You also have P11Ds, which you can generate, as well as payroll journals. So if you want to integrate with other bookkeeping providers, you can do that. So as I mentioned, we do have our own internal link with our bookkeeping, but again, we understand that accountants like to be flexible with their clients because some clients don't want to move, which is completely understandable. So that's where you've got that additional level of support with those other softwares as well. And we've got reports. So any reports you need to generate for payroll, you can do that in Capium as well. Aside from that, that is payroll. So any questions, guys, before we go on to the accounts and tax?
Yeah, quick one. Is the software recognised by HMRC?
Correct, yes.
I'm
So
assuming
we're
it would
recognized
be.
by, correct, yeah. So we're recognized by HMRC and Companies House. And we've got HMRC API links in the software as well, which we'll get into shortly as well.
Yeah. And then the next question was, what about compatibility with other software in case of migration, settings up or leaving? Which
Sure. So
I think you kind of
yeah,
answered in a way.
yeah. I guess the main links, we'll get onto this as well into accounts. So this is a good segue for our accounts production. The main links that we have to other softwares, guys, is like Xero, QuickBooks for the bookkeeping side, and like the payroll with the journals that you've just seen. We also have like Free Agent, Sage for the payroll journals. But for when it comes to the accounts production, which I've just clicked onto, it's going to be mainly QuickBooks, Xero, and Free Agent. For any other software providers, the best way you can import that information to Capium would be through our three-step CSV processes, guys. So we have CSV spreadsheets available in bookkeeping, in My Admin, which is where we do all like the client imports and user setups, payroll accounts, practice management. So there will be CSV supported throughout the software if you are trying to bring that from other software vendors, which are not like QuickBooks, Xero, or Free Agent, for example. So if you are using Sage, TaxCalc, Iris, whichever softwares it may be, you can bring it into Capium that way. So that'll probably be the best method. And as I mentioned, with those onboarding sessions and the training that we do, we will guide you through that process. So don't worry if it's a little bit daunting on your side to obviously use a different software, and then you have to kind of navigate and try and work it out. So we will be there to help you on that process. So as you can see here, so we have the sections provided. When it comes to the accounts, I'll break this down into 3 steps. So the first step is you can add your trial balance. Second step is you can prepare the accounts. And the third step is the submission. So with the trial balance, you click onto this button on the left, click onto the blue button here, fill out all the details. So we've got the type, either annual or management. Period, of course, you can select your accounting period, and you've got all your relevant modes of import. As I mentioned, Capium's integrated, so you can use bookkeeping. If not, you can use CSV, which is the 3-step process. Manuals all from scratch, and we have QuickBooks, Xero, and Free Agent directly integrated as well. So if you use those softwares, you can click create. It will prompt you to log in to those softwares, and then there will be an initial mapping phase because obviously different softwares have different chart of accounts and nominal codes, but we do have auto live mapping in place. So the system will remember that once you've mapped it out for the first time, and then it just makes your imports a lot easier from that point onwards. So once the trial balance has been created and it's all balanced out, you can go to the reports over here and start preparing the reports within the system. In terms of any like post-journal adjustments within the trial balance, you can always go back to the task section and make those amendments. But if we just go to the accounts over here, this is where we can fill out all the details for our account. So we can select a full account, going to HMRC or abridged affiliated, going to Companies House. We can select the trial balance we've created. And if you want to show comparative figures, you can. If not, you can just untick and then generate that through the system. So as you will see, so the logo, this is a completely customizable thing you can do, guys. So there is a setting you can tweak, and you can add in your own logo into the system. So by default, there won't be any logo here. The accounts are, of course, IXBRL supported by default. So you've got your contents page, you've got your company information, director's report, and balance sheet, income statement. So all the relevant sections you would, I guess, be accustomed to within the accounts will be here. And if there's anything you would like to change or customize, you can do that in the settings, which we'll go into over here. So in terms of customizations, you can go over to this section, you can make those changes. Once that's done, you can always go back to the accounts that you've generated, regenerate it, and then submit it to Companies House directly through accounts production. Or you can do it, so if you're doing like your full accounts, for example, you can then have that submitted directly via HMRC incorporation tax. But aside from that, that is accounts. So any questions before we go on to the tax side, guys?
No, not about that. Just about
No
pricing,
worries.
but I'm assuming we'll go to pricing at the end.
Sure, no worries. Yeah, we'll cover the pricing quickly at the end, guys. But yeah, so of course, I've just clicked onto corporation tax just to continue that journey with that client. And this is where we can go to tasks. In terms of the tax, it's going to be quite straightforward, similar to the accounts and the other modules. So if we create the CT600, this is where you fill out all of your information. You've got your form type, either short or full, return type, either new or amended. And with the import, you can either select the accounts or do it manually from scratch. Of course, as I'm a Capium representative, I'll use the accounts that we just previously generated and bring that across. And again, the benefit of that is you don't have to manually attach any IXBRL accounts. Plus, with Capium, it will pre-populate. If you use our accounts that you've just previously generated, it will pre-populate certain figures for you based on what you brought across into the system for your CT600. So if you need to add any of the figures in, you can click on the calculator options here and then add that in accordingly. We've also got the capital allowances, losses and deficits, R&D. Again, guys, this is all under quick entry. We do have the main form, which will give you the comprehensive breakdown of all the sections, which you can go into and add everything in. But quick entry, as the name suggests, just gives you quick access. You can go in, add that all in accordingly into the system. If you're not attaching your accounts, you can select that here. And you've got your computation file as well as the accounts attached at the bottom here as well. Under page 2, we've got supplementary forms. So if you need to add any additional forms, you can go through here. Once they're selected, they will automatically populate at the top. If you've edited the CT600 and you're happy with it, you can click on to submit. You can then have that submitted directly to HMRC. When you submit anything to HMRC or Companies House, guys, there is a pre-validation status report. So we'll flag up any potential errors or mistakes within your tax return, for example. And then once you're past that stage, you can then submit that directly to HMRC or Companies House. And that is that. So I'll just quickly go on to self-assessment. If there's any questions, Caroline, please let me know. But self-assessment will be, oh yeah, please go ahead.
No, there isn't. Somebody's answered the question that you'd already answered. And then the only other thing in the chat, which I'm just going to read out now, rather than me forget later, is HMRC reversed their announcement yesterday about closing the helplines. So that's great. But no questions for you, Alex. Sorry, carry on. Self-assessment.
No worries at all. Yeah, so self-assessment. Again, I'll keep this one as brief as possible because it is going to be very similar to, well, there's going to be similarities to the corporation tax. But one thing you may notice already is we have SA 100s, 800s, and 900s. So these will all be part of the self-assessment package. So if you're dealing with trusts or partnerships, LLPs, or of course, individuals and sole traders, you can do any of those through Capium, right? So you just click and toggle between the specific section that you would like to create, the tax returns for. And if we want to do the SA 100s, we click on the SA 100, and this is where we have our sole traders and individuals just below. So onto one of the ones that we're working on. This is where it will just load up their dashboard, and I can click on the right to go through that process and fill out all the details accordingly. So as you can see, you've got tax year, return type, either new or amended. You've got the import, so you can select previous year, bookkeeping or accounts production, or you can do manual through the system. So whichever one you use, you can then just click save. And even if you select manual, there will be an option to integrate anything from like the bookkeeping or the accounts production module, which we'll get into in a short moment as well. So as you can see, we've got the main form, which you can populate. So you've got your income tax release, finishing your tax return at the bottom with all the links in between. We also have the supplementary form, so you can click here at the bottom or at the top. And this is where you can select exactly which ones you require. Once we've selected them, they will then automatically populate over here, and we can click into those sections to add in the details. You have those additional mode of imports as well to help you out. And we also have an integration with HMRC here. So if you do get HMRC authenticated with Capium for self-assessment, there is an option to do that on the global settings. When you go into any of your individuals or your sole traders, you can then bring that information across into self-assessment. So if you have any P60, pension information, employment records, they can then automatically trickle into Capium instead of you having to manually enter that information into the software. So once, of course, you've updated the SA100 return, there is an option on the left where you can track basically like the final product of everything within your SA100. You can see the main form and all the supplementaries with the computation file, payment on account, and detailed schedule. And if you're happy with that, you can go back to the reports where we came from in the dashboard and then submit that directly to HMRC. And that will be that. And another thing I did forget to mention earlier is Capisign. This is also a great benefit you get, guys. If you do have access to the full suite with Capium, you do benefit from unlimited e-signing. So if you, it's technically called Capisign in Capium. So if you want to send any of your like tax returns, VAT return, or accounts to your client, you can then go to select under the action and send that to HMRC. You can send that to your client. They can electronically approve that either via email or via the free Capium Hub portal, which you can give them access to. And then once that's done, you can then have that submitted to HMRC. So you can go through that check and then just submit that, and that will be that. But aside from that, guys, that is self-assessment. So any questions?
I'm going to have to stop you there, I'm afraid, Alex. We've seriously run out of time. I appreciate that you couldn't have spoke any faster.
Yeah, apologies. I try to keep it
I
as
really
informative.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop you there. But thank you very much. And yeah, if you put your email or send Sam or Sujay some information, and then they can send it out to members, if that's okay.
Sounds good. Right. Yep, in that case, I'll have that sent. Let me just unshare my screen. Sorry, guys.
Brilliant.
Is there a way to unshare or yeah, sorry, I'm just not too.
Sorry, go on, Sam.
Just say you're going to be at Accountex as well, aren't you, Alex? I assume.
Correct.
So any members who want to go over and say hi and carry on the demo, I'm sure will be welcome.
I'll see you at Accountex. Hopefully.
Great. In that case, guys, if you want to come through, we will be at Accountex. So yeah, please say hello. We'll always be happy to help on the software. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have free trials and demonstrations available. So you can always see the software from your own perspective in more detail as well. And pricing, I will put that in the chat. So
yeah, just put it in, because I'm really sorry, Alex, and I really need to move on.
Yeah, I understand.
Carry on.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm seriously out of time now. So
no worries.
Sorry, but yeah.
Thank you for your time, guys. And yeah, please crack on.
Thanks,
Alex. Are you there, Kerrie? Please tell me Kerrie's there. No. Stopped Alex in his tracks. And I can't find
I'm here, but I'm still showing shit.
There you go.
Screen share. I'm here. Hello. I think Sarah wanted to just come on briefly before me, if that's okay.
Yeah, I can do. Yeah. All I wanted to do was just report back on the HMRC stakeholder day. So Kerrie and I spent a day up there at the end of February. I think it was just after last coffee morning. And I suppose the general impression that we had while we were there is that there's a real sea change in how HMRC want to work with professionals like ourselves. Whereas before it's always been a dictator relationship, they're very much shifting towards a collaborative way of working. So if I give an example, one of the workshops we were involved with, HMRC were talking about the side hustle tax. I mean, clearly there's nothing called, there isn't such a real thing as a side hustle tax. And what they're referring to is £1,000 limit. But according to social media and TikTok, this is the story that's developed, and it's now in the wider public known as the side hustle tax. HMRC were wanting to work with us with ideas of how we tackle that, and they've become very, very open. And in fact, they're even sharing emails and wanting collaboration with us and any ideas of how we tackle that. So part of me thinks, oh my gosh, we're doing their job for them, but equally it's nice to feel that we are working more as a partnership rather than just that dictator. So I think it's a real positive feedback from how HMRC are working. So I know that leads into Kerrie was going to touch on one of the other workshops and that we were involved with on the day. But yeah, it was a thumbs up for HMRC, how they dealt with the day. So yeah, well done HMRC.
Yeah, finally. Something good
over
from
to you, Kerrie.
HMRC.
Okay, hello. So I've actually put together a PowerPoint just with some of the things that is happening right now, but I wanted to, I think when I've come on before, we've had like 10 minutes, quick headlines of what's happening, and there's been a lot of chat and we've not had a chance to go through it. So I want this to perhaps be an open discussion. So if anyone has got anything that's concerning them about the topics I'm raising, we can then just touch on the Q&As as we go through the presentation or at the end. So hopefully this will be quite useful to everybody.
Just while you set up your screen sharing, I'm just going to say that Alex has put his email in the chat, which is alex.chaban, CHABAN, @Capium, CAPIUM.com. So yeah, thank you, Alex. And you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, I'm just doing
And
that now.
I'm sure we all know who Kerrie is because she's here most coffee mornings. No introduction needed.
So I am doing this just slight technicalities here. I'm better to talk about HMRC than I have the technology to work this. Right, okay, can you see?
Yeah, I've got Kerrie started screenshot. Yeah, IAB Coffee Morning, Wednesday, 20th of March.
Okay, so there's a lot of announcements that's been happening over the last few months and very recently. So I just want to touch on a few of those that are going to impact us now. So very topical payroll year end, that's of course almost upon us. So just a few updates there, and a bit about the tax year updates and some work that HMRC is doing regarding making sure employees are on the right tax code as quickly as possible. There's also some changes to national minimum wage, which I'll be covering, payrolling of benefits in kind, some of the spring budget announcements, and then touching on the MTD ITSA, which is of course coming down the line. So okay, so firstly, the payroll year end. Last month I shared with you all the February bulletin, the employer bulletin, which has got some really important information about the final payroll submissions. I'll put that in the chat again for anyone that wants to revisit that. But this time of year, a lot of the payroll softwares are providing checklists for your tax year end, but it's just the sort of basics, making sure that your data quality is right, that your employee addresses are correct, so that the P60s go out correctly, ensuring that in the March payroll you have checked the tax code for the employee, make sure they're ending the tax year on the right tax code. And just as well, making sure, because we've got Easter at the payroll year end as well, like this March payroll, just making sure if anyone normally gets paid on sort of the 29th, 30th, 31st of the month, that they're being bank holidays, don't change the date of payroll to the 28th if they normally get paid on the 29th, 30th or 31st, because it can affect the RTI. Now, a lot of the payroll, so if you're on cloud-based payroll, the updates just happen automatically in your software. However, if we're on a desktop type software, just make sure that you've downloaded the new version for the new tax year. Now, I've been on some calls recently that have had software developers in the call who have not appreciated the national insurance rate change for the 6th of April that was only announced at the beginning of March, because many of these payroll softwares had already sent over or updated the payroll software for the new financial year, which of course didn't have the NI rate change. So make sure that you are using the most latest software. And we've had, even from Xero, who we use for some of our payrolls, an automated message to say that if we've got any weekly payrolls that are around the 6th of April payday, to just check what NI amount has actually gone through, because they weren't confident that the changes would be ready in time. So just a little bit of a heads up there, just to check, because the NI rate has gone from 10% to 8% for from the 6th of April. With that as well, making sure employees are on the right tax code for the new financial year. A lot of new financial year tax rates would have been generated in sort of February time, ready for the new year. So just make sure everyone is starting the year correctly, and checking eligibility for employment allowance as well. So you probably know a lot of this, but I just wanted to touch on it as it's so topical. There is some work with tax codes. I was on a call with the employment and payroll group last month, earlier on this month, that at the moment, if say an employee has 2 jobs, so they've got their main job and then they've got a second job that they're receiving the base rate tax code for. If during the year they leave job number 1 with their full tax code is allocated, and so therefore job number 2 becomes their main or sole employment, the tax code will not automatically change over from the base rate. It also, say for instance, if there is an overlap job, so say for instance someone is working a job till the 10th of the month, start their new job on the 11th of the month, they may end up with 2 payroll runs in that same month, one for the first 10 days of work and then one for the rest of the month, and therefore 2 RTI submissions going from 2 separate employers. Now, if the payroll hasn't been set up at the outset correctly for job number 2, so the starter checklist hasn't quite gone in right, the wrong code A, B or C has been done, quite often HMRC will automatically apply a base rate code to the new job, even though that's then only their sole source of employment for the rest of that year. So there's some work being done in the background that started on the 18th of January, where there's some software in the background recognising if any starters or leavers have been processed through RTI and matching those records, so that then there's an automated tax code update done in a lot swifter time. So if, for instance, it is a case that someone has been set up as a rate C, you know, the starter code C, and they're going in as base rate to a new job that becomes their only job, HMRC, when they've received the RTI submission as a leaver from the other job, will within 48 hours match that off and put them onto the right tax code, and that should all happen before payroll number 2 or the pay date. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it does.
because at the moment there's so many employees that if they're on the wrong tax code, you have to make that phone call to HMRC. And that is where the time is. There's helplines that aren't always available. So the more they can automate to make that these tax codes, if there's no record of a second income, then they will automatically make that second income a primary income, and so on. You will start seeing more comms around this to agents, because there's going to be more work done on this. And they also want to, and this is something from the conference that we went to, making it very digitalised. They want more people to be able to look after their affairs in a digital way rather than a phone call way. So encouragement for all individuals to have access to their personal tax account, which they can set up on the HMRC website, which gives them then a portal as such that they can check their tax code, check what income is held for them. It's even got like their child benefit status, their marriage allowance, national insurance. And what that will mean is that they will have given a mobile number to HMRC and an email address to HMRC by setting up that portal. What the aim will be is, as tax codes are updated by HMRC, they can then send an SMS message to an individual or an email saying to log into their personal tax account to explain the tax code and that it is right, and therefore they can in real time mention to their employer, have you received a tax code update for me? So it's just to help digitalise that communication and therefore less phone calls. So now, national minimum wage. So national minimum wage is changing from April. So the current rates are over here on the left. But for the new tax year, not only have they gone up, but there's a big change that there is no longer a 21 to 22 age category. So for a lot of payrolls now, you're going to have 21-year-olds that are getting a nice pay increase from what they have been on, from sort of £10.18 currently to £11.44 from the new tax year. So it's just making sure that all the payrolls that you're running, that you have got the right hours that they work, and just making sure if you've salaried somebody, that you're just dividing that salary up by the hours worked to make sure that they are receiving national minimum wage. Now, I've only put the actual hourly rates on here, but if you've got anyone that receives accommodation allowance, or there's various other bits within national minimum wage that you need to factor in, just go and have a look if you've got any sort of anomalies within your payroll for that. But certainly the headlines are here that you do need to make sure. One of the stands actually at the HMRC conference was someone about national minimum wage, and we have tried to get them that they may come onto a coffee morning, hopefully, if we've certainly made that connection, because there is more to it than just that they're getting paid the right hourly rate. It's also if people are starting 30 minutes earlier in their shift because they've got to set their till up and they're staying a bit later, are they actually getting the right minimum wage if they're doing more hours than they're being paid for? So this is quite a big piece of work that there's been sort of some naming and shaming of big employers that you can publicly Google where they haven't been paying people the right money, but certainly make sure that everyone that you're doing payroll for is aware of this change. And I think especially the age categories. Apprenticeships is also the source of error quite a lot, because if someone is age 19 and in an apprenticeship, they will only get the apprenticeship rate for year 1 of their apprenticeship. Anyone that's in year 2 onwards will get the age appropriate national minimum wage. So obviously that can make quite a difference to the employer, from £6.40 to having to pay, say, £11.44 if they're 21. Any questions so far from anyone?
No, nothing for you yet, Kerrie. I'm sure that.
So last month I touched on this really briefly, that payrolling of benefits in kind is going to be mandatory from April 2026. At the moment, it's involuntary opt-in. Now, if you want to payroll benefits, so therefore each month you're processing what the actual benefit, whether it be medical benefit, whether it be a car allowance and so on, then you have to opt in or register before the tax year starts. Now, right now, only clients can register through their own, they have to have the PAYE access to their government gateway. However, we have been pushing that agents do this on clients' behalf, and they have informed us that that will happen, but it won't be ready for April 24, but it will be ready for April 25, that agents can do this registration. Now, benefits would then be processed in real time rather than backdated tax catch-up. Now, what happens in the first year of payrolling of benefits is that it can cause a drawback of double taxation. Now, someone actually brought this up last month on the Coffee Morning, and I tried to explain that it doesn't really make that much of an impact. Now, the reason that I said that, and I didn't want to mislead, is that at the moment, if you've done a P11D, which has to be submitted in July, your tax code is then updated for the rest of that tax year. What that tax code, though, adjusts by is the tax that you haven't paid for the prior year and it calculates what amount that benefit would be for the rest of that tax year. So even under the current scheme now, in year one of declaring a benefit, you are in effect double taxed. You just don't necessarily see it in the same way that if you are doing, so say for instance, you decide to payroll benefits for April 25, and you're doing then a P11D in July 25, you will have started payrolling benefits from April 25 in real time, that's paying tax and NI in real time. And the P11D will go in July, and then there will be a tax code change for the rest of that tax year for the retrospective year. So it is going to just be something to bear in mind that employees will end up having their net pay adjusted, but this is going to happen. Payrolling benefits has been put to Parliament and it is mandatory from April 26th. We can't change that. It's just education leading up to that. What we have in the group that I'm on, some of the queries, or certainly some of the concerns that we've raised, is the administration burden within payroll, because also what sometimes happens and what we see happen is that the payroll provider just processes payroll. It may be an external, like an accountant that does the P11D benefit submission. It may not be the person that's actually processing payroll. So there will be some upskilling involved within the payroll processing. You also need to know the benefits at the point of the payroll. So if anyone's joined the company, you need to not only know their new starter information, but what benefits are they going to be receiving from day one. It may be that their benefits don't start until they've been with the company for 3 months or 6 months. So there is just those extra thoughts that you need to be aware of that is outside of the usual what salary are they on. It's also just making sure that you know this information in real time, so you're going to have to start the process perhaps earlier on in the month for running your payroll to be able to gather the medical benefits. It may be that the medical monthly payments change mid-tax year because of the renewal date, and the medical benefits aren't in line with the tax year. So these are just some of the things that we've raised, and certainly I know I've spoken to Sarah about us perhaps getting someone in for a coffee morning to go through this in a lot more depth. We had someone from CIPP, I think last year, for payrolling benefits. So maybe we can get someone back on to go through this in more depth.
Good idea.
Okay. Spring budget announcements. Already touched a little bit on this. The national insurance for employees reduced from the 6th of April to 8%. So again, just checking those first payrolls to make sure the right rate is being calculated. The class 4 NICs for self-employed reduced from 9% to 6%. And there is a consultation now been launched to fully abolish class 2 NI. So we'll give you updates as we know that. The high income child benefit threshold as well is raised to 60k with tapering to 80k. Whereas at the moment it's 50 grand to then 60 grand. So that's going to obviously change next year's tax returns perhaps as to the requirement from doing them. There is a consultation that they will be launching regarding making this more of a family or a household benefit rather than just one earner in the household earning these limits, because at the moment, you know, you can have two parents both earning 49,000 each and receiving child benefit, or you can have a sole parent family, or even just one worker over 50k and someone not working in the household or on a lower earner and they lose it. So there will be more information down the line regarding child benefit. Also capital gains tax high rate reduced from 28 to 24%. And the VAT turnover threshold has increased from the current 85,000 to 90,000 before VAT registration is required.
Can I just ask, is the deregistration for VAT turnover increased as well then, Kerrie, do you know?
No, we were looking at this, weren't we, Sarah? And it doesn't look like any announcement's been made on that.
No, that's unclear. So as far as I'm concerned, it stays where it is right now until we hear otherwise.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, now MTD ITSA. This is happening. They're not changing the years anymore. This is in place and we can't do anything about it. So what we're going to do is go through what it is and what it means. And there will be then a lot more coming down the line about this so that we can support as IAB to our agents, our members, and also HMRC themselves are putting a lot of work into consultation with agents. One part of a co-creation group, which has, again, going back to what HMRC is saying about working with agents, so that we can really explore what this means and how to deliver this in the best way possible. So, as of April 26, any client with a sole trader income, and that can be property income, of 50k or more, have to submit their records digitally. There is a testing phase that is commencing now, and I'll come on to that in just a moment. And what it ultimately means is that anyone that is mandated for MTD VAT will need to send quarterly updates to HMRC with their income and expenses for that quarter. There will then be a final submission to just wrap up those 4 quarters, and then there will still be a tax return as well. So that's it in a nutshell. In essence, it's to ensure records are kept digitally and using software to submit. Now, the quarterly updates are going to be tax year quarters, so April to June. Now, would be submitted in August, so a bit like a VAT quarter submission. Now, it was stated that the returns for ITSA had to be in on the 6th of the month. However, we have fed back that if we're doing VAT return, let's just keep everything the 7th because it makes more sense. So the actual deadline for submission will be the 7th of the month following. So April to June would be a 7th of August, July, September will be 7th of November, October to December would be the 7th of Feb, and January to March would be the 7th of May. Now, during the testing phases, there is no penalties, but once this is launched, it will be a penalty regime similar to the VAT and other taxes that we have now, where you'll have like a point system really for your submissions and late submissions, and more of that will be coming out down the line. Now, with ITSA, there's going to be a few changes as to who can do it. So, for instance, if I give you an example of right now, a lot of us as agents probably just get a bag of receipts or possibly a spreadsheet if we're lucky in December or January for the whole year. Whereas this will mean real-time submissions quarterly, digitally. So for our clients that are already VAT registered sole traders, to be honest, it's just another click of a button with the VAT return, because you're doing the work for the quarter anyway. So it will just be submitting the sole trader income and expenses pretty much. The biggest change here is the clients that we don't see regularly, that don't use software. And therefore, that is where the education is going to come in as to how we're going to educate firstly the clients, and also reviewing of the workload for you as a bookkeeper. Can you do that additional work within the practice? And, you know, what it means, because the client's going to have to pay for those services for you. So this is all work to start considering how this is going to sit within your own practice. Now, the quarterly updates do not have to be submitted by a bookkeeper. So one of the big pieces of work for MTD VAT is about having granular access to different agents. So you might find you've got a client that's actually quite happy to put their income and expenses in and click a button through software. So they could be doing their own quarterly updates. And then us as bookkeepers are then wrapping it up at the end and making any adjustments for any areas potentially that's been made. The quarterly updates are also under consultation at the moment, because it has been suggested that when this goes live, they're cumulative, so a bit like the VAT return where late claims will pull through, rather than you having to go back into the quarter and resubmit if there was an error found. So that's going to help throughout the year pull through any missed expenses or income. There is also talk about certain softwares being able to submit an automated quarterly update, which has been met with a little bit of concern as to really, if you're having an automated quarterly update without anyone actually checking it, the information provided to HMRC may not be accurate, so what's the point? However, it may be that certain softwares and clients have to sign some kind of disclaimer that if automated quarterly updates are enforced, that they are making sure their paperwork is up to date as they can. So there's a lot more work around how that quarterly update would look. So you could have client doing the year's worth of work and you just doing still pretty much the final submission and tax return like you do now. On the other hand, it may be that at present you look after just one part of your client's overall tax affairs. So you may do just their small sole trader business, but they've got other income streams like property and other sort of sole trader businesses or income coming in that their accountant looks after. So therefore you could be doing the quarterly update just for this, but then the accountant does the final submission and the tax return, bringing in all the other income streams and new tax adjustments. So there's a piece happening at the moment about how to authorise 2 agents to be able to work under one client. So I think having this multi-agent access is a good thing, as long as you've got very clear roles as to who is responsible for which part.
Okay, sorry, Kerrie, we're out of time. I'm just going to wrap up for you, but thank you very much. As you can see, Kerrie has been, or both of us have been quite heavily involved in the MTD consultations with HMRC. There's lots and lots of different scenarios that are being played out. Not all of this can be published at the moment, but what was really positive was in the autumn statement, a lot of the conversations that we had did come into force. So again, it reinforces that HMRC really are working with us, but it's really great that Kerrie can bring all these real life scenarios that we all experience into that forum, and they are being listened to and they are playing out. Some of the concerns that we have are already with HMRC and are being thought about. So yeah, lots of work going on in the background. We can't talk about all of it at the moment. But what was great, Kerrie's released what we have been able to talk about today. So thank you. That was brilliant, Kerrie. Thank you. Also, just the last thing before we go, awards deadline close on the 5th of April. So please get your entries in. We've got lots and lots of categories, lots and lots of entries coming in. I would be delighted to see more coming through. So if you want to make an entry or, you know, you can nominate somebody else, then please do. So yes, we've got 2 or 3 weeks to make those entries.
Can we just recap when
on the website, isn't it, Caroline? Is the list, or Sam? Can someone just quickly put that in the chat?
In the chat.
Yeah,
you've got it in the chat. Okay, thanks, Sujay.
In the chat. Can we just recap when the award ceremony is? Is it the 20th?
It is the 20th of June at the Houses of Parliament, but entries close on the 5th of April. So you must get them in because judging will start immediately. So yes, we will have time booked out, and we've got some fabulous sponsors who will be supporting us with that judging too. So yeah, do you want to read out the link there, Caroline?
I will. It's iab.jotform.com/team/IAB-awards-entry-form-2024. And there's more categories this year than there was last year. So go on there, have a look, and put yourself forward, or put a colleague, or anybody, or email your clients and ask your clients to put you forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Under the event section on the website, everybody, there's 2024 awards under the event section, all the information on the categories. Loads of photos from last year is there as well, so you get a feeling of what it's like. But do enter. 5th of April at 5 p.m. entries close.
Brilliant.
I think I need an hour next time.
Yeah, thank you, Kerrie, and thank you to Alex. I realise Alex is up to shoot off, but yeah, thank you. 2 speakers that took us both over this morning.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Next coffee meeting is 17th of April. See you on the 17th.
Oh, that's my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.